Today, we're diving deep into the transformative power of your mind. Are you ready to clear the blockages from your life and heal your mind in just 5 minutes? Well, we're about to embark on a journey of self-discovery and empowerment. Now, let's talk about your incredible brain. Your brain is like a mirror reflecting everything you've learned and experienced in your life so far. It's an intricate tapestry woven with the threads of your external environment, a manifestation of your past experiences. Feelings and emotions, my friends, are the byproducts of those experiences. If you find yourself feeling the same way day in and day out, it's a sign that nothing new is happening in your life. And if those emotions are driving your thoughts, creating a loop where your thoughts and emotions feed into each other, guess what? You're thinking in the past. But fear not, for we're about to break free from this cycle. Our research over the last 3 years has shown us a remarkable truth. When you combine a clear intention with an elevated emotion, magic happens. Intention is like a vision, a potential that already exists in the quantum field, waiting for you to select it. So what would it be like to be healthy, wealthy, free, or deeply in love? The moment you ask this question, your frontal lobe, the crown jewel of your brain, turns on. The frontal lobe acts like a symphony leader, scanning your entire brain and randomly selecting different networks of neurons connected to your life experiences. It weaves them together seamlessly, creating an ideal, a vision, an internal representation of a potential experience waiting for you. It's time to let your mind dance with the possibilities. But it's not just about the mind. Thoughts are the language of the brain, and feelings are the language of the body. When you combine clear intention with elevated emotions, you create a state of being. And when you emotionally embrace that future reality before it's physically manifest, your body, the unconscious mind, starts believing it's living in that future reality in the present moment. Congratulations, you're moving into a new state of being, a new personality. And guess what? A new personality creates a new personal reality. Our research has shown that as people regulate their internal states, creating coherence in their brain and generating elevated emotions, not only does the brain become coherent, but so does the heart. Now, why don't we live in these elevated states every day? It's because, my friends, 70% of the time, we're living in our waking state of consciousness, dominated by the hormones of stress. Living in stress equals living in survival mode. And in survival mode, you define your reality with your senses, believing your outer world is more real than your inner world. When you're in survival mode, the chemicals of survival dictate your actions. You become a materialist, focusing on objects, things, and people. This way of living makes you feel separate from the endless possibilities of the universe. Why? Because survival mode is not the time to go within, trust the unknown, open your heart, feel love, communicate, create, or learn. It's simply a time to survive. To create, my friends, you have to lay down the very things you've used your whole life to get what you want. You need to step into something greater. It's a choice, a decision, a firm intention to be greater than your environment. And remember, thoughts are the language of the brain and feelings are the language of the body. So how do we change our reality? It starts with changing our beliefs and perceptions about ourselves and our lives. What is a belief but a thought you keep thinking over and over again? All beliefs are rooted in past experiences. To change a belief or perception, you must make a decision with such firm intention that it surpasses the hardwired programs in your brain and the emotional conditioning in your body. And here's the magic. When that choice becomes an experience you never forget, the past biologically no longer exists in you. You move from victimhood to creatorhood. The term victim loses its grip on you because you realize that no one and nothing outside of you controls how you feel and think. Many people unknowingly fall into the trap of allowing external circumstances to dictate their inner state. If you find yourself saying, "I'm upset because of this person or this circumstance," you're unconsciously giving away your power. Someone or something out there is controlling your feelings and thoughts, making you a victim. But here's the challenge. When things go well, you feel good. When they don't, you feel bad. It's a roller coaster ride of emotions tied to external events. It's time to shift the narrative, turn the battleship around, realize that you create reality all the time, and living in lack, unworthiness, and separation keeps you waiting for external events to fill the void. Now let's explore a radical idea. Your thoughts and feelings have an effect on your outer world. It's not a one-bite concept. It's a process of knowledge, practice, and experience. As you see synchronicities, coincidences, and opportunities fall into place, you'll start connecting the changes within you to the effects outside of you. Mastering yourself is like becoming the captain of your own ship, steering through the vast sea of life with intention and awareness. It's about understanding the ebbs and flows of your inner world, recognizing when creativity flows effortlessly and when it seems to be elusive. Picture this. Your mind is a canvas, and mastering yourself involves being the artist who skillfully paints the masterpiece of your life. One crucial aspect of this journey is being attuned to your creative state. It's that magical zone where ideas flourish and inspiration seems to dance around you like fireflies in the night. Identifying these moments is like discovering hidden treasures within yourself. Yet the path to self-mastery isn't always bathed in the glow of creativity. There are times when the canvas of your mind appears blank, devoid of inspiration or direction. In these moments, mastering yourself means navigating through the fog of uncertainty and finding the light that guides you back to your creative essence. Take a few moments each day to consciously engage with principles that have the power to reshape your beliefs and perceptions. Imagine beliefs as seeds planted in the soil of your mind, nurtured by the waters of repetition. These beliefs, whether positive or negative, are the fruits of your past experiences. To alter them, you must become a deliberate gardener, choosing which seeds to water and which to uproot. Changing your beliefs requires more than a casual desire. It demands a conscious decision fueled by a potent energy. This energy must surpass the deep-rooted programs that have become the default settings of your mind. It's like rewiring your mental circuitry, replacing old patterns with new, empowering ones. The journey to mastering yourself is a dynamic process of self-discovery and transformation. It involves peeling back the layers of conditioning that have accumulated over time, revealing the authentic core beneath. As you become more adept at recognizing your creative states and understanding the mechanics of your beliefs, you gain the power to consciously shape your reality. When you make a decision and turn it into an unforgettable experience, the past no longer binds you. You become the creator of your life, not the victim. The word victim loses its hold, and you start taking responsibility for your thoughts and feelings, realizing their profound impact on your outer world. If you're reacting to the same people, places, and circumstances, you're perpetuating the same reality. It's time to be greater than your environment. Your being is how you think and feel. Practice the art of self-regulation. Find the present moment and settle your body from unconscious programs and conditioned emotions. As you lower the volume of those conditioned emotions, you regain power. You're not quick to give your energy away to external problems or people. Your focus shifts and your electromagnetic field builds. Now, you have the energy to heal and create a new future. The power lies within you. Your thoughts and feelings shape your reality. By understanding this, you become the master of your destiny. It's a journey of knowledge, practice, and experience. As you see the effects of your inner work in your outer world, you'll be inspired to continue the journey. Now, if you trust that you can go a little further, then all of those thoughts are just thoughts in your head that you have to create coherence around. So if you stopped and you said, I am going to master this moment, forget about going anywhere, doing anything, following instructions. I'm just going to work with my body to get it back into the present moment and continue to unfold back into possibility. Here's my question. If you turn that battleship around even slightly by executing a will that's greater than that program, and you are in hot pursuit of your own freedom and your brain and your personality is beating you up, I've had those moments. And you know what? It's David and Goliath. It has always seemed bigger than me because I've given it so much of my attention and so much of my energy. It is bigger than me. But when I no longer pay attention to it, just like not giving my power to it, now I can settle myself back into the present moment, and it's just the thought. And I examine that thought, I look at it, and I become very familiar and conscious of it. And then my brain will say, well, what about this? You did this wrong, it's too late. Give up. And then I address that thought. Now, here's my question. 45 minutes of doing battle with your personality and continuously choosing love and unfolding deeper into it. If you make the effort to disinvest your attention and energy out of Goliath and pull energy back to you, but the next meditation that you have could be the easiest meditation for you to connect. Is it possible? So then that had to come up for you in order for you to evolve through it. Yes or no? And your body is just saying, look, I'd rather be worrying about my taxes than connect to the divine. Yes or no? There's a book that was one of my favorite books I ever read. It's called The Red Lion. And The Red Lion is a great story of an initiate that murders an alchemist and drinks the Philosopher's Stone drinks, the Red Lion, the elixir of life that causes immortality. And he wasn't ready to drink this Philosopher's Stone. He wasn't of the right consciousness, and when he drank it, he never forgot any of his lifetimes. And he saw all his demons. And this book is this journey of this soul through different levels of every single lifetime you can imagine that you and I can relate to. And he runs into a secret society, and he becomes initiated. And there's a chapter in The Red Lion called The Kilkyard, and I ask my children to read that chapter every year. Every year they have to read that chapter, because the initiate sits down in front of a statue, an inanimate statue. And his job is to animate that statue and bring it to life. Are you with me? And for years, he wakes up in the morning, makes his tea, has his breakfast, and then all day he's putting his life force and his energy into animating this particular statue. And after years, he notices it swallows. He notices it moving its finger, and the moment he starts to realize that he could take something inanimate and bring it to life, he gives it more of his attention and energy. You with me still? Until it is a walking, talking being. As we begin to create more coherence in the brain, more coherence in the heart, you're creating a very profound laser, a Wi-Fi signal that can allow you to read information. Can't read it if you're separate. You can't read it if your brain's incoherent. You can't read it if your heart's incoherent. And so the more coherence and order you have, the more the experience gets enriched, because you can't read that information unless you're ready for it. That's the point. So as people start getting through this and they start having very profound moments, and they're now opening their heart and they can sustain heart coherence and they know how to create brain coherence, that's the formula. And now they have a laser. They have coherent light and information that can read information that exists beyond the senses. And the pineal gland, once activated, will transduce it into profound imagery. Whether you see with your eyes open or your eyes closed, it doesn't matter, because it's more real than anything you've ever experienced. Let's have a small pause here. It's the next part. Dr. Joe is going to talk about his research about the 4 states of matter. Listen carefully. This is very important. And so I started researching, and I found that there's 4 states of matter. There's solids, there's liquids, there's gases. And the biggest, most abundant form of matter, what's called plasma. And plasma is when you have a negative charge and a positive charge, and they haven't formed an atom yet. So if you have a negative charge and a positive charge, then you're going to have an electrical current running between the two and a field around that current. In the universe, really, stars connect through plasma. Everything connects through plasma. So when you start seeing these complex patterns, it's an impression from that plasma that's being pressed into three-dimensional reality. And so if you take 3 stones, right, and you drop them at the same time into a plate, and you freeze the water in the plate, and those 3 stones fall, and they start producing concentric rings, and they start interfering with each other, you're starting to get complex pattern of interference. If you take a light and you shine it through that frozen piece of matter, when you shine the light through it, when the light shines through it, the laser shines through it, you will see the appearance, a hologram of those 3 stones projected out into space. That's exactly how reality is. So then reality then is a projection, right? And so then when you study matter, it's not matter that's emitting a field. It's actually those complex patterns that are creating matter. So then you don't change the tumor. The tumor is the effect of the pattern in the field. Change the field, you change matter. So teaching people how to do that, when they change the pattern in the field and it starts to appear as change in three-dimensional reality, the illusion is everybody's been trying to change matter. And so it's not that. So it starts changing the way you see things, right? Because disease then is an incomplete pattern. It is a fractal pattern that's lost order, that's lost coherence, that's lost centropy, that is fragmented, can we say? You could say it's broken down, it's disorderly, it's chaotic. You know, and I don't know, you can use the example of Imhotep crystals as a good example. When you see gratitude, you see those beautiful geometric patterns. When you see anger, when you see pain, you see this weird pattern that's not solid, it's not coherent. So then why not practice brain and heart coherence? Because you're creating a lot of order out of disorder. And as you do that better and better and you're functioning from a different consciousness, you'll begin to interact with information that's beyond your senses. Most of our thoughts and feelings come from our past experiences. They come from our memories. In fact, your brain is organized to reflect everything you know in your life. Your brain is a record of all the things you've learned and experienced to date. It's an artifact. And when you have an experience, when you're in the midst of an experience, all of your 5 senses plug you into the external environment. And as your brain is processing all of this vital sensory data, all of that information rushes back to the brain. And when it reaches the brain, it causes jungles of neurons to organize themselves into networks, to string into patterns, to reflect their interaction with their external environment. The moment those neurons organize into patterns, the brain makes a chemical, and that chemical is called a feeling or an emotion. And so experiences tend to create more long-term memories because it patterns or stamps or embosses networks of neurons into very specific patterns. And then the emotional quotient helps us to remember the event. So we learn something new intellectually. We also cause networks of neurons to form. I mean, the Nobel Prize laureate Kandel in the year 2000 found that when people learn just one bit of information, they doubled the number of connections in their brain from 1E300 connections to 2,600 connections. So if they didn't review that information or repeat it, the connections pruned apart. So we know then that learning semantic information begins to organize circuitry in the brain, and experiences enrich the brain. The end product of experience, of course, is the emotion, and it causes us to feel certain ways. And the moment you felt altered or you felt differently, significantly, your brain perked up and you paid attention to whatever caused that. And that event in and of itself is called a memory. So then most of our thoughts and feelings tend to be within the neural circuitry of the past and the emotions of the past chemically. So if you take a thought, thoughts are the language of the brain, and feelings are the language of the body, and how you think and how you feel creates a state of being. So if you combine a thought and a feeling, a thought and a feeling, a thought and a feeling, and you have a series of good thoughts that are connected to a series of good feelings, that cycle of thinking and feeling creates what's called an attitude. If you have a series of negative thoughts that are connected to some pretty bad feelings, you'll say you have a pretty bad attitude today. So if how you think and how you feel creates a state of being, your attitudes are just shortened states of being. You feel good in the morning, you feel bad in the afternoon. If you take an attitude, an attitude, an attitude, and you begin to string attitudes together, when you combine an attitude, an attitude, an attitude, you start to form what's called beliefs. Now, a belief is just a thought you keep thinking over and over again until you hardwire it in your brain. And because beliefs are based on past experiences, the very boundaries of our beliefs are how we feel. And so when our beliefs get challenged, it typically doesn't feel right. I know from the research that we've done that the redundancy of thinking and feeling and feeling and thinking over time, for example, a person has an insecure thought, then they feel insecure. The moment they feel insecure, they think more insecure thoughts. They fire and wire more circuits in their brain to feel more chemicals of insecurity. And then once they're feeling insecure, they think more insecure thoughts. And they do this over and over again. The redundancy and the repetition of that cycle over time conditions the body to subconsciously become the mind. Once the body becomes the mind, that's called a habit. It turns out that 95% of who we are by the time we're 35 years old are a set of habituations, unconscious thoughts, unconscious behaviors, unconscious emotional reactions that function like a subconscious computer program. So back to beliefs. An attitude, an attitude, an attitude are shortened states of being, and you combine them together then. Then a belief, then, the cycle of thinking and feeling over time creates a subconscious state of being. I don't move past the word visualization because I think it kind of conjures up a little bit too much of a spiritual association. The word that's used in science is called mental rehearsal. In mental rehearsal, there's two types of mental rehearsal. There's what's called internal mental imaging, which means you're in the scene as the first person experiencing it. And then there's called external mental imaging, which is you're observing yourself in the scene. It turns out that when you are actually in the first person and not the third person, that action of rehearsing what you're doing produces the strong biological change. Now let's talk about this. You can take a group of people that have never played the piano before, and you can do a functional brain scan on them, and then you can teach them one-handed scales and chords, and they'll practice those chords 2 hours a day for 5 days. At the end of 5 days, they grow a whole new set of circuits on the opposite side of the brain. Well, that makes sense. You learn something new. Learning is making new synaptic connections. You get your body involved with some instruction. When you get your body involved, you're going to have a new experience. Experience enriches the brain. You pay attention to what you're doing. You've got to pay attention. You have to stay present. And if you repeat it over and over again, firing and wiring, you assemble new networks of neurons equal to your experience. Nothing new there. But you can take a group of people and you can have them close their eyes to a brain scan on them before the experiment. 5 days later, do a brain scan after. And for 2 hours a day, they mentally rehearse playing those scales and chords. At the end of 5 days, they grow the same amount of circuits in their brain as the people actually physically doing the exercise. So what's the relevance? Number one, when you're truly focused and you're truly paying attention, your brain does not know the difference between what's going on out there and what's going on in here. So the thought becomes the experience, and the brain looks like it's been playing the piano for the last 5 days, but they never lifted a finger. Now, from a biological standpoint, our brains are a record of the past. They're an artifact of everything we've learned and experienced to this moment. When we prime the brain to change its circuitry before the experience, now the brain is no longer a record of the past. It's now a map to the future. And so as we warm up those brain circuits, it's more easy for us to slip into a supernatural behavior. If you take those people and you set them from the piano, and they've never played the piano before, but they've been mentally rehearsing for the last 5 days, they'll play those scales and chords. Like magic, they just learned how to do it just by changing their internal state. Take a group of men. You can have them close their eyes, and for an hour a day, mentally rehearse doing bicep curls over and over again, and they add an emotional component called harder, stronger, more intense, and they put themselves in that first-person, internal, mental image. At the end of 2 weeks, they have a 13.5 increase in muscle strength, and they've never performed the activity. Not only is the brain changed to look like the experience has already occurred, now the body has changed by thought alone. The body looks like it's been working out for the last 2 weeks. So then the power of mental rehearsal, of imaging, primes the brain and body to look like the future has already occurred. And when you set the extent of your limit, and you can image what you can do even further than what's normal, then you are stepping into the unknown. And of course, then your body is going to follow your mind because the experience has already happened. You know, the challenge behind all of this is that people have to understand that there is a journey that they have to take. In other words, 95% of who we are by the time we're 35 years old is a set of memorized behaviors, emotional reactions, beliefs, perceptions, attitudes, behaviors that function like a subconscious computer program. 95% of who we are is a habit, and it's programmed in the body to keep doing something so many times the body knows now how to do it better than your brain. Here are 2 very important windows that open up that allow your body and your brain to be more suggestible to information. That is when you wake up in the morning, your brain waves go from very slow delta to theta to alpha to beta. And when you go to bed at night, you go from beta to alpha, theta, delta. So you slide up the scale when you wake up, and you slide down the scale when you go to bed at night. And most people, when they go to bed at night, they just go from beta right down the delta. They fall very quickly. You can teach people then how to just sit and slow everything down and begin to visualize, begin to affirm, begin to change their thought, to begin to work with their body. And it seems, according to our research, that those changes can last. So what do most people do when they wake up in the morning? Your brain is a record of the past. It's an artifact, a memory bank of everything you've learned and experienced to this moment. So people wake up in the morning and they start thinking about their problems. And those problems are memories in the brain that are connected to certain people and certain things at certain times and places. So they wake up in the morning and they start thinking in the past. Now, the moment they start having those thoughts, every one of those experiences has an emotion associated with it. So when they start thinking about their problems or the problems of the world or the problems of their body or whatever it is, problems at work, they all of a sudden start to feel the correlated emotion. So now their body's in the past. So now people then get caught up in an emotion. They reaffirm their identity. They could wake up in the morning and feel nothing at all. And then all of a sudden they say, well, wait a second, I've got to get back to myself. So they start thinking about their problems, and here come the emotions. And they say, oh, now I feel like me again. So those emotions then begin to influence our thoughts. Like if you feel like a failure, you're going to think you're a failure. And when you think you're a failure, you're going to feel like a failure. And when you feel like a failure, you're going to think more thoughts equal to being a failure. And the cycle of thinking and feeling and feeling and thinking causes you to say, I am a failure. And the repetition of that process of thinking and feeling and feeling and thinking conditions the body to become the mind of that emotion. Now the emotion is stored in the body. Now the body's literally in the past. And the body, as the unconscious mind, doesn't know the difference between the actual experience that's creating the emotion and the emotion that you're creating by thought alone. Your body's believing it's in the same experience 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. So getting people out of the past is the work. So then they wake up in the morning after they reaffirm who they are, and they can't think greater than how they feel. They're in the familiar past. So if you're in the familiar past, you're going to do the things that reaffirm the emotions of your predictable future. So you wake up in the morning, you check your WhatsApp, you check your text, you check your Twitter, you tweet, you check your Facebook, you check your email, you check the news. Now you are really connected to everything that's known in your life. and then you run through a series of routine behaviors. You move around your house the same way you always do. You do all the same things. You go to the same grocery store. You buy the same food. You shop the same way. You do all these, you watch the same TV shows, and people do this for 10, 20, 30 years. Now their body's on autopilot, and their body's dragging them into a predictable future based on what they did in the past. We could actually take their yesterday and lift it up and set it on their tomorrow, which means then they've lost their free will to a program. So now the familiar past and the predictable future is called the known. There's only one place that you have to train a person to be, so that they're not in the known, they're in the unknown, and that's called the present moment. So people get very happy being unhappy because they would rather cling to their unhappiness than take a chance in possibility. So stepping into that river and beginning to make a new choice and understanding that uncertainty, that unpredictability is the unknown. Now you're in that river of change, and it is the neurological, the biological, the chemical, hormonal, genetic death of the old self. People say to me, well, if there's uncertainty, I can't predict my future. And I always say the same thing.